Hello there, welcome to Two Hopes Garage. My name's Jace, thank you very much for joining us. Unusually, there's a Volvo parked in the garage today. My wife's 2018 XC60 D5 is in need of some front discs and pads. So we're going to get it up in sticks, get the old ones off and replace them with some genuine Volvo parts. Let's get this up in sticks and let's get these new brakes on. Grand. Just before I start, there's the part numbers that I'll be using today. So there's the pads, and there are the discs, full of Swedish goodness. What to be aware of with the Volvos is on these XC60s, there are 3 different sizes of discs, I believe. Mine's a 345mm, and once I get the wheel off, I'll show you an easy way to see what size yours are. Where the 2 holes are, I have got a rubber adapter for the jack, and it just sits under there. There's an inner point as well. I can't get mine in there, so I use this one, and it lets me put an axle stand just ahead of it. If I use this one here, I wouldn't be able to get an axle stand under this because the jack would be there. And likewise it would be a bit close to here, but I'll show you this once it's up. So outer point with a jack and adapter. So we'll get this up on sticks. Just inboard of the jacking point is a triangulated hard point there. So I'm using that for the axle stand. Axle stand's taking all the weight. The jack's only just come back into light contact with the jacking point. I don't find this car the best for hard points to put an axle stand under, but there you go. One of the things I should have mentioned, and there's a couple of things I should have mentioned, is if you're braking the torque on your wheel nuts with a breaker bar, do that while the wheel's still on the ground. I'm using an impact wrench today, so not so important, and I can do that while the vehicle is in the air. Also, before you raise it up, get your locking wheel nut adapter out of the glove box or wherever you keep that, and also pop the bonnet open because we'll be needing to get in about there shortly. I'm going to pop these fuel nut covers off. Now, I had a tool in the glove box and a tool in the boot specifically for popping these things off. Unfortunately, the wheel nut cover tool fairies seem to have appeared and wheeled them away somewhere. I'm not sure where, because none of my other cars have these on them. So they've gone. I've ordered some in the post and they've not arrived in time for the video. So today I'm taking these off somewhat reluctantly with a couple of picks. I'm not a big fan. You can see I've actually put these back on for the video purposes because they're coming off easily. But there's potential to scratch your wheel with these things. Use the proper tools, guys. They're cheap as chips as well. And the one in the adapter. So we'll stash them somewhere safe. I'm hoping my grid isn't too much in the frame here, but never mind if it is. These things happen. So next off, we'll get the wheel nuts off. Wheel nuts are 19mm, let's get them off. Oh, you got to love an impact gun. What a game changer. Wheel nut shouldn't have been torqued up too much. I did have the wheel off of this previously, so I know for a fact that this isn't torqued up much. There we are. So that's us get the wheel nuts off. If your wheel's not been off for some time, you may need to give it a fair few boots. A couple of boots each side of the tyre just to get it off there, because you might have got a wee bit of dissimilar metal corrosion between the alloy wheel and your hub. This wheel was off early this morning, so it's going to pop off, no bother, says he, just before it doesn't pop off, no bother. There we are. So wheel's off. I am going to put that away and get it washed on the inside because it is pretty manky. With regards to how to easily identify what size disc you have, there we are, just under the Volvo logo to the left hand side of the screen, you'll see 345 stamped in the bracket. That is the size of the disc for that bracket. So yeah, quick easy way to identify what size disc you need on your car. Right, next up, get the bonnet open and we'll access our brake fluid reservoir. Now, this is a right-hand drive Volvo, so your reservoir, if you're in left-hand drive, is probably on the other side. Here we are. Lift this cover, pop it aside. There you can see the brake servo at the back, and our brake resi is just here. So we're going to open that up. Pop the cap down, and we're going to monitor the brake fluid levels there. They will rise as we start compressing the brake pistons. So yeah, keep a weather eye on those at all times. Like I say, right hand drive, servo's obviously over here, left hand drive. I've not seen one, but I'm guessing it's going to be over on the other side. So let's crack on.
Right, what we're going to do next is just get a screwdriver or a pry bar in there and compress that piston a wee bit. What we're looking to do, we're not looking to compress it completely, we're just looking to give ourselves a wee bit of clearance to go over the ridge of the brake disc. So yeah, when you do that, obviously keep an eye on how your brake fluid's looking. So that's my disc there. There's the pad. You can see I can get a screwdriver in there. That is going to be more than enough room to clear that ridge. And we'll just go upstairs and have a wee look at our brake fluid.
Right, let's get our caliper retaining spring off now. I'm going to give this a squeeze. This is located on a small lip here. These are just sprung against the end of it. So we'll release this from the caliper. I'd highly recommend that at this point in time you wear PPE on your face, because this thing can come out very quickly if it springs on you. So that went by without incident, so happy days. Okay, in here, here and here, we've got the caliper slider pins. They are covered by these plastic covers sitting on a sort of rubbery boot. These just pull straight off like so. So that's them off. Inside there is an 11mm Allen bolt. That's quite deeply recessed. Before removing the caliper, I am going to take this bracket off, simply because the hose from the bracket down to the caliper is a very short one, and I don't think that's going to give me much options with positioning with regards to hanging the caliper out the way. So when I take this off, it's a 7mm. It's going into an aluminium casting, so be careful when undoing it. And doing it up, obviously, which should just let me get a bit more flex using this hose and that one to get the caliper slung up a bit more out the way. I'm hoping my sleeve's not obscuring that too much. Oops, excuse me. And before taking it off, just remember the orientation of the hose. You want to be achieving that when you put it all back together again. So I'll get this bracket out the way. Pop the pop the bolt back in so we don't lose it. That just gives us a little bit more wiggle room for removing the caliper and hanging it up out the way. Grand. So here's the tool that I'm using to get these caliper pins off. It is a Sealy, I think the number's VS0288. I'll put the number along here somewhere if it isn't. Basically an 11mm Allen key. It's sitting on a 1/2 inch socket drive. So next up, let's get these caliper slide pins out. So I reckon these will be reasonably tight, especially if you try and tighten them. Let's go for loosening them instead. Yeah, a wee bit tight. And the top one, there we go. Put in the bottom one. Yeah, what to have in standby is something to, there you go. There's one, actually looking quite nice and clean. Another one, looking nice. Right, let's get that caliper out. So it should just slide straight off. One of the brake pads is left in the bracket. I'll take that out in a minute. The other one is sitting in here. It's in with a spring clip. It will just pop out with a little bit of force. There we go. There we are. Just in the back of that piston with a spring clip. What I'm going to do for the moment, I normally hang my calipers up with one of these hangers. However, that is not going to work in this instance. So let's get the hanger, let's get a caliper. Don't you just wish you had a bungee to hand sometimes? There we are. So our caliper is hanging up out the way. As you can see, I've got quite a bit of corrosion on here. So before it all goes back together again, I'm going to clean that up with some Scotch-Brite and just put some anti-corrosive on there. Right, here's our two bracket bolts. There's one there and one there. They are on an 18 and they're going to be pretty tight. So I'm going to whiz these off with the impact. If you don't have an impact, you are probably going to want a fairly long extension. 1, 2, 3. Let's get the top one off with the impact again. Hopefully you've not got too much of my sleeve in there. And once again, this is going to be pretty tight. And your bracket now should simply pull away. There we are. That deserves a clean. So we'll get this all wire brushed and cleaned up. These bolts are single use. If you buy the Volvo discs, they come with another couple of new ones. So you've got a wee Torx T30 retaining bolt on here. Let's get your Torx in there and whiz that off. It shouldn't be too tight. There we are. Keep a hold of that. You're going to need it for the new one. So let's get that disc off. I'm just going to give it a couple of sharp raps with a 3-pound club hammer on the back of it. Wear eye protection for this, guys. Oh my word, that was easy. So that disc ready to come off, more or less. There we go. So what you're going to want to do before you put a new disc on is we'll just get all this area here cleaned up. It's a bit manky. We'll get that cleaned up and we'll get a little bit of copper grease around there. And I think it might clean up this dust shield a wee bit as well. The slider pins on these have actually been really quite clean. Now I just look to remove that residue. We're not looking to remove material off them here. We're not wanting to be taking any of the metal away. We're just wanting all that old gunk off the top of them. There we are. That's what we're looking for. A nice clean surface on our slide pins. Grand. What we're doing here, because the brake pads were quite well worn, our piston has extended a fair bit out the caliper. So I've got a brake piston tool on here. Equally, you could use a G-clamp or some channel lock pliers to retract that piston. What you do need to do is keep an eye on your brake fluid levels. Obviously, as the caliper retracts, it pushes fluid back into the system, so you need to keep a weather eye up at your reservoir to make sure you're not spilling brake fluid. That'll be pizza time in the kitchen. We're doing homemade pizza. The kids are getting excited. I would say that that piston is retracted. So slacken this back off. There we go. Fantastic. Got all the wee wipe. Prior to doing that, I like to wipe the piston seal down, get rid of any dirt. Let's get our brake disc on. Make sure you give the hub here a real good clean down. Get all the old stuff off it, any old corrosion. Likewise with this portion of the hub as well. Now, whilst not absolutely mandatory, I like to get a thin film of copper grease on there, taking care not to put it in the holes. It just makes life easier a wee bit down the road, should you be going to change these again. Yep, there we go. For the T30 bolt, which is 6mm, the instructions say 10 Newton meters. So 10 Newton meters it is. Probably just tightening it up nice and snug would do for that. But we've got it torqued to 10 Newton meters. So I think next up, we'll get the bracket fitted. So we'll get our bracket into place. There are the new bolts. You can see they've already got thread locker in place on them. So I've got these started by hand. I'm just going to zip them up on a low setting with the impact. One. Right, now the bolts are on. Let's get them torqued up. These bolts go to 200 Newton meters. They're reasonably tight. As you can see, I've got the bracket wire brushed up a bit and made sure that the areas that the pads slide in are nice and clean and nice and smooth. I generally put a little bit of silicone grease on there just to help things along. If you are putting silicone grease on there, make sure you don't touch that brake disc. If you do, get it wiped off with some brake cleaner. Grand. Also, I'm going to stick a wee bit of silicone grease just on the mating face of the piston where it touches the pad. If a wee bit gets onto the seal, then no biggie. So got a wee bit in there. I've also wire brushed, you can just see it up at the top there. Up at the top, the brake ferrule or the brake connector there, the hose connector, I've also wire brushed the corrosion back off of that and treated it with a wee bit of under seal. There we go. Let's get our pad onto the bracket. This one here can just slide into place, like so. These have already got an anti-noise membrane on the back of them, so no need to clart a load of copper grease or the other one, silicone grease on there. Although I might put a wee bit of silicone grease on the mating faces on the thing. So with our caliper, let's just get the orientation correct. There we are. Copper brake pad and spring clip. Right, after a bit of persuasion, we get our caliper back into position, like so. Just before we fit our caliper slide pins, what we'll do is just give them a light coating of silicone grease. That will just keep them nice and mobile and let the caliper move around more freely. Fantastic. Same with the other one, obviously. Right, next up, let's get our caliper slide pins in. I need to do a little bit of alignment on these. Just give the caliper a wee nudge. There we are. That's one started. Make sure you can start them easily by hand. You definitely don't want to be cross-threading them. So there's one in. There we go. Once again, make sure that hand threads nice and easily so we're not cross-threading. Next thing, torquing. Alright, let's try the torque again. 60 Newton meters. There's one. And two. Right, now we're just going to pop that little bracket back in place again. Let's get our 7mm bolt back out of there. There we go. And we'll pop the bracket back in place. The prong going through there, like so. And then you've got 7mm bolt, pops in here, and you've got a slot there just to accommodate a wee bit of adjustment if need be. I have put a wee bit of underbody wax on the ferrule there and cleaned up the one that was a bit corroded. Wire brushed that down and put some anti-corrosive on there as well. If I can find a torque setting for this, I'll provide it, but for the meantime, I think it's just going to be a case of making sure it's nice and snug. It's going into an aluminium casting, so we definitely don't want to be over torquing it, lest we strip the threads. So all we're going to do with this one is make sure it's nice and snug and sitting correctly. I'd say that would do that. Also making sure that your hose has gone back in the correct orientation and is not twisted or stressed at all. And yeah, we'll have a quick overview. So I had tie wraps up on the, oh, let's move you up here. I had tie wraps up here holding the caliper on. They've been removed. I did clean in here and sprayed some underbody wax over the exposed metal. Not on these castings because they're aluminium and they don't need it, but on the ferrous metal. So our hose is on, brackets on, the caliper guide pins, slide pins are tightened up. What we need to do here, I'll pop that down, is just pop our end caps back onto our little rubber receptacles there. So they simply push on. There we are. Caliper slide pins tightened up, torqued, caps on. Our new bolts holding the bracket on are torqued, pads are in, and it's a case of getting the wheel on now. Prior to fitting the wheel, I'm just going to do a wee light coating of copper grease over the hub, once again being careful not to get it in the holes, or else your torque values are going to be wrong. Oop. You'll have wet torque rather than dry torque. A little bit around the rim there. And that there is just going to help you out the next time. So here's the clip I lost on the last video, and it's crucial but slightly fiddly, and that is making sure your caliper retaining spring is fitted. Make sure you've got positive engagement of the clip underneath these two lugs on the outboard face of the caliper, and that your clips up here are on the rear side of these lugs. And that's that. And once you're back in the ground, you get wheels torqued up. To 140 Newton meters. Once they're all torqued up, we can get our dust covers back on. The round one fits over the locking one, and the ones with the prongs on them go over the others. 1, 2, 3, and finally this one. Don't forget, once you've done 20 or so miles, get the covers back off again and recheck the lug nut torque. Grand. Once we're back in the ground, check your fluid levels, make sure your cap's on securely, and get your cover panel back in place. Like so. So that's the Volvo brakes sorted. They're all peachy now. What I will put up is I've got a table of the various different torque figures that came with the Volvo brake parts. So I'll put that up if it's of any help to anyone. Brake system. The brake system is obviously a safety critical life and death system. So if you're not confident or comfortable working on your brakes, get your car to a competent mechanic. Don't take risks with brakes, guys. Anyway, the next Volvo content is probably a wee while away, but what I'm going to look at in the next one is addressing the built-in corrosion feature in the rear doors. If you've got one of these Volvos, you'll know what I'm talking about. Absolutely shocking bit of 1970s Range Rover-esque design in the rear doors in these, and I'm going to look at addressing it with some Volvo parts that you can buy. Why you have to buy the parts for this, I don't know. Volvo should have fitted this stuff from the outset. Anyway, that's a wee rant over. thanks again. Oh, what else is coming up? The Mercedes W126 across the way there. I am going to put content up for that within the next week or so. I know I did a wee false start with that previously, but there's stuff coming up shortly. So thanks very much for watching. Please consider pressing the subscribe button. I am the world's least watched automotive channel, and every subscriber's a celebration. So consider hitting that. If you've enjoyed the video, give the like button a wee podge for us as well, please. It all helps. And you know what? You press the like button now, there's like wee flashy things come up, but it looks great. So give that a wee hit for me, please. Other than that, I'm done. Thanks once again for watching. Hope to see you again. Until then, take care. Cheers. Goodbye.